What if the most important repair your brain ever performs only begins when you disappear? Every night, as you lose consciousness, a hidden system inside your brain quietly switches on, a biological cleaning process that cannot function while you're awake. It washes away metabolic waste, clears the residue of thought, and resets neural pathways that keep your mind sharp. You don't trigger this process by effort. You trigger it by letting go. Sleep is not rest, it is maintenance. And the question is no longer why we sleep, but what happens to the brain when we don't allow this invisible system to do its work. The transition into this state is not a sudden drop, but a gradual receding of the tide. As you lie there, the boundaries of your physical self seem to soften, and the internal dialogue that dominated your afternoon begins to lose its sharp edges. It is here, in this quiet borderland, that the mind starts its first phase of reorganization. We tend to view healing as a physical act, like a bandage on a wound. But the most profound repairs often occur in the subtle shifts of our neurochemistry. There is a delicate balance between the hormones that keep us alert and those that invite us to rest. And in this very moment, that balance is tilting. The nervous system, which has been scanning for threats and managing tasks all day, finally receives the signal that it is safe to redirect its energy inward. This redirection of energy is one of the most overlooked aspects of human biology. We spend so much of our time focused on external output, on what we can achieve and how we can influence the world around us. But the mind has its own agenda, a quiet set of priorities that it attends to only when the external world is shut out. Think of a grand library after the patrons have all gone home. The lights are dimmed, the doors are locked, and the librarians finally have the space to return books to their proper shelves, to repair torn pages, and to clear the dust from the aisles. Without this nightly maintenance, the library would eventually fall into a state of such clutter that no information could ever be found. Our minds operate with a similar necessity. Every interaction, every fleeting thought, and every emotional spark from your day has left a trace. And now, the mind begins the patient work of sorting through it all. It is a gentle process, one that does not demand your attention or your effort. In fact, the more you let go, the more effectively the process can run. There is a specific kind of beauty in this lack of control. In a world that demands we be the masters of our own destiny, the act of falling asleep is an act of profound trust. You are trusting your biology to navigate the coming hours, to regulate your breath, to steady your heart, and to conduct the symphony of repair that happens in the shadows of your subconscious. You might feel a slight heaviness in your limbs, a sensation that is not burdensome, but rather like a warm, protective weight. This is the body's way of anchoring you, of ensuring that while the mind travels through the landscape of memory and restoration, the physical self remains secure and still. We often wonder why some days feel heavier than others, why a night of restless sleep can make the world seem sharper and less kind. It is because the healing of the mind is the foundation upon which our perception of reality is built. When the mind is allowed to complete its nightly cycles of integration, we wake with a sense of clarity that is not just intellectual, but emotional. The sharp corners of yesterday's worries have been sanded down by the rhythmic pulses of slow-wave sleep. The brain has decided what is worth keeping and what can be safely discarded, acting as a gentle editor of our personal history. This editing process is essential for our survival. If we remembered every single detail of every single moment with equal intensity, our minds would be overwhelmed by the noise. Healing, in this context, is the art of forgetting the unnecessary so that we can find peace in what remains. As we move deeper into this reflection, we will explore the specific stages of this inner journey. We will look at how the brain moves through different frequencies, much like a radio tuning into different stations, each one serving a unique purpose in the grand design of your well-being. But for now, it is enough to simply be aware that the process has already begun. Even as you listen to these words, your system is beginning to downshift. The heart rate is finding a slower, more melodic rhythm. The breath is becoming a shallow, easy cycle of air. You are standing at the entrance of a long, quiet corridor of recovery, and there is no need to hurry. The path is well worn, and your mind knows the way by heart. There is a deep, ancient wisdom in the way we rest, a legacy of restoration that has been passed down through every generation of humanity. It is a quiet, reliable miracle, happening every night, just behind the veil of consciousness, the rhythmic descent of the brain's frequency. As we move further away from the wakeful world, the brain begins a transformation that is almost musical in its nature, shifting from the frantic, jagged rhythms of the day into something much broader and more resonant. If you could see the electrical activity of your mind right now, you would notice the high-frequency waves of active thought, those quick, sharp pulses that help you solve problems and navigate traffic, slowly giving way to a deeper, rolling cadence. This is the transition into the alpha and theta states, a space where the mind is no longer tethered to the immediate demands of the physical environment. In this state, the brain starts to vibrate at a frequency that mirrors the natural world, a slow pulse that feels like the wind moving through a canopy of trees, or the steady, rhythmic pull of the tide against a quiet shore. It is a biological downshifting that signals every cell in your body that the time for action has passed and the time for integration has arrived. The significance of this frequency shift cannot be overstated when it comes to the architecture of healing. When the brain slows down, the barriers between different regions of the mind become more permeable. In our waking life, we operate with a highly specialized focus, where logic and emotion are often kept in separate compartments to allow us to function efficiently. But as the waves of the mind lengthen and slow, these compartments begin to open. Information starts to flow more freely across the hemispheres. This is why, in the moments before sleep, you might find that a problem that seemed unsolvable an hour ago suddenly takes on a different shape. Your mind is no longer trying to force a solution through sheer willpower. Instead, it is allowing the different parts of your inner experience to talk to one another. It is a collaborative form of repair, where memory, intuition, and biological regulation meet in the quiet space of the slowing mind. Consider the physical sensation of this shift. You might notice that your sense of time is beginning to stretch and blur. A minute might feel like a much longer period of reflection, or perhaps the gaps between thoughts are becoming wider and more spacious. This stretching of time is a necessary part of the healing process. In our waking life, time is a resource we are constantly spending, a linear track that moves us from one task to the next. But in the pre-sleep state, time becomes a landscape. The mind is no longer rushing toward a destination. It is simply existing within a space of potential. This creates a psychological safety net. When there is no clock to watch and no deadline to meet, the nervous system can finally let go of its defensive posture. The muscles in the shoulders and the jaw, which often hold the tension of the day's time pressure, can finally surrender to gravity. You are becoming heavy, not in a way that feels tired, but in a way that feels grounded, as if you are being gently pulled back into the earth's quiet embrace. This deepening of the brain's rhythm also triggers a shift in how the body manages its internal resources. When we are awake and stressed, our energy is sent to the periphery, to our muscles and our senses, so we can respond to the world. But as we slide into these slower frequencies, the brain sends the energy back to the core. This is when the metabolic work of healing truly accelerates. The immune system, which has been quietly patrolling in the background, now takes center stage. It uses this period of low-frequency brain activity to conduct a thorough scan of the body, repairing cellular damage and neutralizing the microscopic stresses of the day. It is a profound irony of the human condition that we are most productive in our self-preservation when we are doing absolutely nothing. The stillness of the mind is the engine of the body's recovery. As the waves continue to slow, moving toward the deep, cavernous pulses of delta sleep, the mind begins to detach from the ego, the I that has been navigating the world all day. This ego is often the source of our greatest mental fatigue. It is the part of us that worries about reputation, that regrets the past, and that fears the future. In the slow frequency states of the night, this ego begins to dissolve into the background. You are no longer a person with a list of chores and a set of anxieties. You are simply a biological system returning to its baseline. This dissolution is perhaps the most healing aspect of the entire night. It provides a total reset of our psychological identity. When the brain operates at these low frequencies, it is not concerned with who you are in the world. It is only concerned with the fundamental integrity of your being. It is a return to the source, a quiet immersion in the deep waters of existence, where the self is replaced by a sense of profound, impersonal peace. Every breath you take now is a confirmation of this shift. Each exhale is a bit longer than the inhale, a natural signal to the vagus nerve that all is well. You are drifting into a territory where the language of words is replaced by the language of rhythms and pulses. The mind is preparing to hand over the reins to the deeper, more ancient structures of the brain, the parts that have been keeping life moving since the dawn of time. These structures do not need your guidance. They do not need your thoughts. They only need your silence. And so, as the frequency of your consciousness continues to drop, you find that the silence is not empty. It is a full, rich, and supportive presence that carries you toward the next stage of your journey, where the real work of memory and emotional repair is waiting to begin in the depths of the night. The silent archives of memory and the work of the night. As the brain settles into its rhythmic cadence, it begins a task of monumental complexity that we often take for granted: the sorting and filing of the day's experiences. Imagine for a moment a vast subterranean archive stretching infinitely in every direction, filled with the raw materials of your life. During the day, this archive is flooded with new deliveries: sights, sounds, conversations, and fleeting emotions, piled up in the loading bay of your short-term memory, specifically within the delicate structures of the hippocampus. This area of the brain acts as a temporary holding cell, a transit hub where information waits for the quiet of the night to be processed. If we did not have this nightly sorting, our minds would quickly become a chaotic jumble of unsorted data, making it impossible to learn from the past or plan for the future. The healing power of sleep is, in many ways, the power of organization. The process of memory consolidation is a slow and meticulous one. As the body remains still, the brain begins to replay the events of the day at high speeds, firing neurons in the same sequences that occurred while you were awake. It is a digital rehearsal of your life, but performed in a safe, enclosed environment where the external world cannot interfere. This replay serves a dual purpose. First, it identifies which pieces of information are vital for your survival and well-being. The brain is an efficient editor. It knows that the color of a stranger's shirt in the grocery store is likely irrelevant, while the nuance of a difficult conversation with a loved one holds significant weight. It begins to strengthen the synaptic connections of the important memories, weaving them into the existing tapestry of your long-term knowledge, located in the vast expanse of the neocortex. This is how a fleeting thought becomes a part of your wisdom. But there is a second, more profound layer to this archival work, and it is here that the concept of mental healing truly takes hold. As the brain moves memories from temporary storage to permanent residence, it performs a kind of emotional surgery. This is often referred to as the sleep to forget, sleep to remember hypothesis. While the brain preserves the facts of an event, the who, what, and where, it simultaneously works to strip away the sharp, painful emotional charge associated with it. Think of a memory as a physical object wrapped in a layer of thorny, stinging nettles. The nettles represent the raw stress hormones, like noradrenaline, that were present when the event occurred. During the specific cycles of the night, the brain carefully unwraps the memory, removing the thorns so that when you wake up, you still have the information, but the sting has been lessened. This is why a problem that felt like a crisis at midnight often feels like a manageable challenge by morning. This emotional desensitization is one of the most vital functions of our psychology. Without it, every trauma, every slight, and every moment of fear would remain as fresh and painful as the moment it happened. Our minds would be perpetually stuck in a state of high alert, unable to move forward because the weight of our emotional history would be too heavy to carry. Sleep provides the distance required for perspective. It creates a temporal buffer that allows the nervous system to recalibrate. In the stillness of the night, the brain is essentially telling the body, "We have recorded the lesson. and we can now let go of the alarm. It is a quiet, persistent form of therapy that happens without a single word being spoken, a natural mechanism for resilience that has been built into our biology through millions of years of evolution. As this work continues, the brain also begins to search for patterns. It doesn't just file memories in isolation. It looks for connections between new information and things you already know. This is the root of human creativity and insight. While you are drifting in the deep currents of rest, your mind is making leaps of logic that are impossible during the focused, linear thinking of the day. It is comparing today's experiences with those from a decade ago, looking for similarities, metaphors, and solutions. This cross-referencing is a form of cognitive healing. It helps us make sense of a complex world, turning a series of random events into a coherent narrative of a life. When we say we need to sleep on it, we are acknowledging this deep, associative processing. We are giving the brain the time it needs to find the hidden thread that connects our experiences. The beauty of this process is that it requires no conscious effort from you. You do not need to direct the archivists. You do not need to tell the editors which memories to keep. The system knows exactly what to do. Your only role is to provide the environment, the darkness, the stillness, and the surrender. As you lie there, you can almost imagine the quiet hum of this internal machinery, the gentle shuffling of pages, and the soft clicking of new connections being made. Each breath you take is a pause in the story, a moment of space that allows the mind to catch up with the life you are living. The heaviness you feel in your limbs is the weight of this important work being carried out. You are not just resting, you are being rebuilt, one memory at a time, into a version of yourself that is wiser, calmer, and more prepared for the dawn. The internal tides of the glymphatic clearance. While the mind is busy with its archival work, a more literal and physical form of cleaning begins to take place deep within the folds of the brain tissue. For a long time, scientists wondered how the brain, an organ with such a high metabolic demand, managed to dispose of its waste. Most of the body uses the lymphatic system to clear out toxins, but the brain is sealed behind the blood-brain barrier, a protective fortress that keeps out pathogens, but also complicates the removal of cellular debris. It was only recently discovered that the brain has its own unique waste management system, a hidden network that only fully opens its floodgates when we reach the deepest stages of rest. This is the glymphatic system, a rhythmic, pulsing tide of cerebrospinal fluid that flows through the channels between our brain cells, washing away the metabolic byproducts that accumulate during our waking hours. It is a physical manifestation of the phrase, clearing your head, a literal bath for the neurons that have been firing tirelessly since you woke up. To understand the scale of this process, imagine a busy city during a festival. Throughout the day, thousands of people move through the streets, leaving behind wrappers, discarded programs, and the general dust of activity. While the festival is in full swing, it is impossible for the cleaning crews to do their work effectively. The streets are too crowded, the energy is too chaotic. But once the crowds disperse and the city falls silent under the moonlight, the street sweepers can finally emerge. In your brain, the crowds are the electrical signals and the tight packing of active neurons. When you fall into deep sleep, the brain cells actually shrink in size, physically contracting to create more space between them. This increase in interstitial space, up to 60%, is what allows the cerebrospinal fluid to rush in and perform its vital work. It is a deliberate structural change that the brain undergoes to facilitate its own purification. This nightly tide focuses on removing specific proteins, such as amyloid beta, which are the natural waste products of neural activity. When we are awake, these proteins accumulate like silt at the bottom of a river. If they are not cleared away regularly, they can begin to clump together, creating a kind of biological static that interferes with how our neurons communicate. The healing power of this fluid movement is profound. It ensures that the environment in which your thoughts and feelings exist remains pristine. There is a deep, quiet comfort in the idea that while you are drifting in the stillness, your body is performing a task of such microscopic precision. You are not just a passive observer of your rest. You are the beneficiary of a sophisticated plumbing system that keeps the very foundation of your consciousness clear and functional. The rhythm of this clearance is tied to the rhythm of your heart and your breath. As your heart rate slows and your breathing becomes deep and steady, it creates a gentle pressure that helps drive the fluid through the brain's channels. It is a slow, pulsing motion, perfectly synchronized with the low-frequency delta waves that are now beginning to dominate your brain activity. Everything is working in concert: the electricity of your thoughts, the pumping of your blood, and the flow of the clear, life-sustaining fluid. This is why a lack of sleep can leave us feeling foggy. That fogginess is not just a metaphor. It is the physical sensation of a system that hasn't been properly cleaned. But tonight, the channels are open. The tide is coming in, moving through the intricate valleys of your cortex, carrying away the heaviness and the mental friction of the day. This process highlights a fundamental truth about human health. Our biology is designed for cycles of exertion and renewal. We are not machines that can run indefinitely without maintenance. We are more like gardens that require the cooling dew of the night to recover from the heat of the sun. The glymphatic system is the gardener, quietly tending to the soil, ensuring that the roots of your cognition are healthy and well-nourished. As you lie there, you might feel a sense of lightness beginning to compete with the heaviness of your limbs. This is the result of that internal pressure being released. The metabolic weight of the day is being lifted, atom by atom, molecule by molecule. It is a form of renewal that is so subtle we never feel it happening, yet so essential that we cannot survive without it. As the fluid circulates, it also helps to distribute nutrients and signaling molecules that prepare the brain for the coming day. It is not just about removal, it is about restoration. The environment is being balanced, the pH levels are being adjusted, and the delicate chemical soup that allows you to feel joy, curiosity, and peace is being replenished. You're in a state of total biological integrity. There is nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to manage. The tides of your inner world are moving according to an ancient and perfect schedule. You can trust in the flow. You can trust in the quiet, pulsing work of the night. With every slow breath, you are inviting this cleansing tide to move a little deeper, to reach a little further, until every corner of your mind is refreshed and still. The city is quiet, the streets are being swept, and by the time the first light of morning touches your eyes, the world within will be new again. The deep resonance of the delta state. As the internal cleaning of the glymphatic system reaches its peak, your brain waves begin to stretch into their longest, slowest, and most powerful form, the delta wave. This is the deepest stage of non-REM sleep, a place of profound stillness where the conscious mind is entirely absent and the body enters a state of total metabolic focus. If the earlier stages of the evening were about sorting and cleaning, this stage is about foundational reconstruction. In the delta state, the brain's electrical activity resembles the slow, deep swell of the open ocean, far away from the choppy waves of the coastline. These waves are so powerful that they synchronize large areas of the brain that rarely communicate during the day. This synchronization is a form of neural harmony, a moment where the entire system hums in a single, unified frequency. It is the closest we come to a total suspension of the self, a deep dive into the silent waters of our most basic biological existence. In this profound depth, the pituitary gland receives a signal to release a surge of growth hormone. While the name suggests physical height, in adults, this hormone is the master key to systemic repair. It is the chemical architect that moves through the bloodstream, seeking out the wear and tear of the day. It stimulates the synthesis of proteins, the building blocks of our muscles, tissues, and skin. It is here, under the cover of delta waves, that the physical body truly mends itself. The micro tears in your muscles from a long walk, the subtle damage to your skin from the sun and the wind, and the general oxidative stress of being alive are all addressed in this window of time. The body is not merely resting, it is being actively renovated. This is the physiological core of healing, a process that is so energy intensive, it can only happen when the brain has completely surrendered its command over our movements and our thoughts. The delta state is also a period of intense immune regulation. Your immune system is not a static shield, but a dynamic and highly intelligent army that requires regular briefings and replenishment. During this deep sleep, the communication between your immune cells and your nervous system becomes highly refined. The body produces cytokines, small proteins that are essential for fighting off infections and managing inflammation. If we think of inflammation as the internal heat of the body, the result of stress, poor diet, or physical strain, then delta sleep is the cooling rain that brings the temperature back to a healthy baseline. It is a time of recalibration, where the body's defenses are sharpened and its internal sensors are reset. Without this deep, resonant phase of the night, our immune system becomes sluggish and confused. But within the delta waves, it finds its strength and its clarity once again. There is a strange and beautiful paradox in this state. The less you are there, the more your body can do for you. The ego, with its persistent anxieties and its constant need for control, is an expensive luxury for the human animal. It consumes an enormous amount of glucose and oxygen. By stepping aside and allowing the conscious mind to dissolve into the delta rhythm, you are liberating those resources for the essential work of survival. This is why deep sleep is often described as restorative. It is the one time in the 24-hour cycle where the energy of life is directed entirely toward the maintenance of the vessel. You are like a ship in a dry dock, with the hull being scraped, the engines being tuned, and the sails being mended. The ship cannot be at sea while this is happening. It must be still, and it must be out of the current. The stillness of delta sleep also has a profound effect on the heart. During this phase, your heart rate and blood pressure reach their lowest points of the day. The cardiovascular system, which has been pumping tirelessly to meet the demands of your waking life, finally gets a period of relative ease. This dipping, as clinicians call it, is vital for long-term heart health. It allows the blood vessels to relax and the heart muscle to recover its elasticity. It is a slow, rhythmic massage for the entire circulatory system, driven by the same deep pulses that are moving through your brain. As you lie there, your heart is beating with a steady, unhurried confidence. It knows that for these few hours, it does not need to race. It only needs to sustain the quiet, cooling flow of life through your resting limbs. As we linger in this reflection on the delta state, it is important to realize how safe this space is. Though it is the deepest level of unconsciousness, it is also the most protected. Your body has evolved sophisticated mechanisms to ensure that you remain undisturbed during this critical work. Your sensory threshold is at its highest. The minor sounds of the house or the distant hum of the world are filtered out by the thalamus, the brain's gatekeeper, so that the slow wave symphony can continue uninterrupted. You are wrapped in a cocoon of biological silence. In this space, there is no past to regret and no future to fear. There is only the slow, rhythmic pulse of reconstruction. You are being woven back together, cell by cell, wave by wave, in the deep, dark workshop of the night. The more you lean into this stillness, the deeper the repair can go, carrying you further into the heart of your own restoration. The transition into the theater of the dreaming mind. As the deep, restorative currents of the delta state begin to recede, the brain does not return to wakefulness, but instead initiates a remarkable ascent toward a different kind of consciousness. This is the approach to REM sleep, or rapid eye movement, a stage where the brain's electrical activity paradoxically begins to resemble the alert, fast-paced rhythms of the day. However, while the brain is firing with an intensity that mirrors a person solving a complex puzzle, the body remains in a state of profound paralysis. This is a brilliant biological safeguard known as muscle atonia. It is as if the mind has decided to put on a grand, vivid theatrical production, but has simultaneously disconnected the wires to the muscles to ensure the actor doesn't leave the stage and wander through the bedroom. This separation of mental activity and physical movement is where the deepest emotional healing begins to take shape, occurring in a space where we can experience everything while being physically touched by nothing. In this stage, the brain's chemistry undergoes a unique and vital shift. Specifically, there is a significant drop in the levels of norepinephrine, which is the brain's equivalent of adrenaline. This is the only time in our entire lives, day or night, when the brain is completely devoid of this stress-triggering molecule. Imagine the significance of this for a moment. It means that during REM sleep, your mind can revisit the most difficult, confusing, or even frightening memories of your life in a state of total neurochemical calm. You are able to process hot emotions in a cool environment. This is the core of the psychological repair mechanism. The brain takes the raw, jagged edges of our daily anxieties and begins to smooth them down, filing them away without the accompanying physical sensation of panic or stress. It is a form of overnight therapy, where the mind acts as both the patient and the compassionate counselor, re-evaluating our experiences from a place of safety. The dreams that emerge during this time are not random noise, even if they seem bizarre or fragmented to our waking minds. They are more like a sophisticated simulation, a way for the brain to test out different emotional responses to the challenges of life. When you dream of being in a strange house or navigating a landscape that shifts and changes, your mind is actually engaging in a complex form of pattern recognition. It is taking the lessons of the day and cross-referencing them with every other experience you have ever had. It is asking, how does this new feeling fit with what I already know? What is the best way to respond to this kind of pressure? By playing out these scenarios in the safety of a paralyzed body and an adrenaline-free brain, you are building emotional resilience. You are learning how to handle the world without having to actually face it. This is why, after a long night of dreaming, we often wake up with a sense of closure that we couldn't find while we were awake. This theatrical state also serves as a vital bridge for our creativity. In REM sleep, the logical centers of the brain, the parts that tell us what is possible or realistic, are dampened, while the associative centers are heightened. This allows the mind to make daring, unconventional connections. It is the reason why some of the greatest scientific breakthroughs and artistic masterpieces in human history have been dreamt up. The mind is no longer restricted by the rules of gravity, social expectations, or linear time. It is free to play with ideas as if they were colorful blocks, stacking them in ways that the rigid waking mind would never dare. This playfulness is a form of healing in itself. It reminds the subconscious that the world is more flexible than it seems, and that there are always new ways to perceive a problem. As you drift through these vivid internal landscapes, you are essentially expanding the boundaries of your own imagination, making your inner world a larger and more resourceful place. The physical sensations of this stage are subtle but fascinating. Although your limbs are still, your eyes are darting back and forth beneath your lids, following the action of your internal cinema. Your breathing may become slightly faster or more irregular, and your heart rate might flicker with the intensity of the dream. Yet, because of the lack of norepinephrine, this physiological activity doesn't translate into stress. It is like watching a thrilling film from the comfort of a warm, heavy blanket. You are engaged, you are present, but you are entirely safe. This balance of engagement and safety is the perfect recipe for integration. It allows the psyche to stitch together the disparate pieces of the self, the person you were yesterday, the person you are today, and the person you are becoming. As we linger in the doorway of this dreaming state, it is helpful to appreciate the sheer intelligence of your own mind. It knows exactly which stories to tell you tonight. It knows which memories need to be revisited and which ones need to be let go. You are participating in a tradition of storytelling that is as old as the human species, a nightly ritual of self-reflection that happens in the quiet dark. There is no need to try and remember your dreams or to analyze them with your waking logic. The work is being done on a level far deeper than words. You can simply exist as the observer, the silent witness to the mind's own healing theater. Each flickering image, each strange transition, is a step toward a more integrated and peaceful version of yourself. The curtain is up, the lights are dimmed, and the healing play of the night is unfolding exactly as it should. The intricate dialogue of the internal systems, while the theatre of the mind is occupied with the vivid imagery of dreams, a quieter, more systemic dialogue is taking place between the brain and the rest of the body. We often imagine that during sleep, the brain is the sole director of the night's proceedings, but the truth is far more collaborative. This stage of the night is characterized by a constant, looping conversation between the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the gut, a biological triad that works in harmony to restore the body's internal equilibrium or homeostasis. If the day is a period of expenditure, where these systems are pushed to their limits to meet the demands of the environment, then this middle portion of the night is the period of reconciliation. It is a time when the body's various departments submit their reports, and the brain, acting as a master regulator, adjusts the chemical dials to ensure everything is ready for the coming day. One of the most fascinating participants in this nightly dialogue is the digestive system, specifically the enteric nervous system, often referred to as the second brain. While you are deep in rest, the gut is not simply dormant. It is performing a rhythmic, sweeping motion known as the migrating motor complex. This is a specialized cleaning cycle that moves through the digestive tract, clearing out undigested food and managing the bacterial populations that live within us. But beyond this mechanical task, the gut is sending a constant stream of neurochemical signals back to the brain via the vagus nerve. These signals provide a status report on the body's energy stores and its inflammatory state. The brain receives this information and, in response, adjusts the production of hormones like ghrelin and leptin, which govern our hunger and satiety. This is why a night of interrupted sleep often leads to a day of erratic cravings. The conversation was cut short, the reports were never fully processed, and the dials remained in their stress positions. Tonight, however, the dialogue is uninterrupted, and the balance is being meticulously restored. As this chemical balancing act continues, the endocrine system is busy managing the body's primary stress hormone, cortisol. In our modern world, cortisol levels often remain elevated long into the evening, kept high by the blue light of screens and the lingering thoughts of our responsibilities. But in the true depth of the night, if the environment is cool and dark, cortisol levels finally drop to their absolute lowest point. This cortisol dip is essential for the healing of the cardiovascular and immune systems. It provides a window of time where the body is not in a state of fight or flight, allowing the tissues to recover from the corrosive effects of chronic tension. At the same time, the brain begins to prepare for the eventual morning by slowly building up the reserves of other signaling molecules. It is a delicate seesaw of chemistry, one that requires the absolute stillness of the body to function with precision. You might feel this as a profound sense of hollowing out, a lightness where the density of stress used to reside. The conversation also extends to the temperature regulation of the body. Throughout the night, the brain's hypothalamus works to lower your core body temperature by a few degrees. This drop in temperature is not just a byproduct of inactivity, it is a deliberate cooling of the biological engine. Much like a high-performance computer that needs a cooling system to prevent its processors from overheating, the human body needs this nightly thermal reset to maintain its metabolic health. The skin may feel warm as the body shunts heat from the core to the extremities, a process that is often aided by the weight of a blanket. This thermal exchange is a signal to the mitochondria, the power plants within your cells, that they can slow down their production and perform essential maintenance on their own structures. It is a systemic cooling, a quiet settling of the embers that allows the fires of the body to burn more efficiently when they are eventually relit. Furthermore, this stage of the night sees a fascinating process of synaptic scaling. During the day, as we learn and experience new things, the synapses in our brain, the gaps where neurons communicate, become strengthened and enlarged. This is how we record the world, but it is an energetically expensive process. If our synapses just kept growing and strengthening indefinitely, our brains would eventually run out of space and energy. To prevent this, during the quiet hours of the night, the brain performs a global downscaling of these connections. It identifies the connections that were weak or unimportant and shrinks them while preserving the ones that were most significant. It is like a gardener pruning a hedge to ensure that the most important branches have the resources they need to thrive. This pruning is a vital form of cognitive healing. It clears out the noise of the day and leaves behind a more efficient, more streamlined neural architecture. The beauty of this internal dialogue is its absolute autonomy. You do not have to know how to balance your leptin, or how to scale your synapses, or how to trigger the migrating motor complex. Your body is a masterpiece of self-regulation, a system that has been refined over millions of years to take care of itself. There is a deep existential relief in realizing that for a significant portion of your life, you are not the one in charge. You can step back and allow these ancient, wise systems to do what they were born to do. As you lie in the dark, you are part of a grand, rhythmic process that connects you to every living thing that has ever sought the refuge of the night. The dialogue continues, the chemical dials move, and the internal tides ebb and flow, all leading you toward a state of profound, systemic harmony. The quiet restoration of the nervous system's scaffolding. As the night deepens and the various systems of the body continue their rhythmic dialogue, a more structural form of healing begins to take place within the very scaffolding of the nervous system. We often think of the brain and nerves as a collection of wires, but they are more like a living, breathing forest that requires constant tending. During the day, the high-speed transit of electrical signals creates a kind of wear and tear on the myelin, the protective, fatty sheath that insulates our nerve fibers. Myelin is what allows thoughts to travel at lightning speeds, and without its integrity, our mental and physical coordination would begin to falter. In the profound stillness of these late-night hours, the brain initiates a specific regenerative process called myelination. While you are suspended in rest, specialized cells known as oligodendrocytes become remarkably active. They move through the neural pathways like quiet foresters, patching up the insulation and ensuring that the electrical wiring of your consciousness remains sharp and efficient. This structural maintenance is not limited to the insulation of the nerves. It extends to the very fluid that cushions the brain and spinal cord. We have discussed the glymphatic clearance, but there is also a chemical replenishment of the cerebrospinal fluid that occurs during this time. This fluid is rich in proteins, glucose, and ions that are essential for neural health. As you lie still, the production of this life-sustaining nectar is optimized, ensuring that the brain is literally soaking in the nutrients it needs to rebuild its cellular foundations. It is a form of deep tissue nourishment that can only happen when the body is in a state of horizontal repose. The lack of gravitational pull on the spine allows the fluid to circulate more freely, reaching the furthest recesses of the nervous system. You might feel this as a subtle sense of elongation, a feeling that the spaces between your vertebrae are opening up and the tension that held your posture rigid is finally dissolving into the mattress. Beyond the physical structure, there is a fascinating recalibration of the neurotransmitter receptors. During the day, our receptors for dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine are constantly bombarded by stimuli. Like a set of ears that has been exposed to loud music for too long, these receptors can become deaf or desensitized. This is often why we feel emotionally flat or uninspired after a day of intense stress or overstimulation. The night provides a period of total sensory deprivation, a silent room for the brain's chemical sensors. In this silence, the receptors begin to reset their sensitivity. They are being recalibrated to notice the subtle signals of joy, curiosity, and peace once again. This is a profound form of emotional healing. It ensures that when you wake up, you are not just a continuation of yesterday's exhausted self, but a fresh observer capable of experiencing the world with renewed clarity. You are, in a very real sense, regaining your capacity for wonder. This phase of the night also sees a remarkable phenomenon involving the body's internal clock genes. Every single cell in your body contains a set of circadian genes that act as tiny, individual timekeepers. During the peak of the night, these genes synchronize. It is as if a master conductor has stepped onto the podium and tapped their baton, bringing all the disparate cellular rhythms into a single, unified tempo. This synchronization is crucial for the regulation of metabolism and the prevention of cellular aging. When these clocks are in harmony, the body's repair mechanisms operate with maximum efficiency. The mitochondria, those microscopic power plants within your cells, use this synchronized period to perform their own internal quality control, repairing their DNA and clearing out dysfunctional components. It is a total systemic alignment, a moment where every part of your biological being is moving in perfect step with the ancient rhythms of the planet. As this structural and cellular repair continues, the mind drifts into a state of pure being. This is a space where the narrative of your life The stories you tell yourself about who you are is momentarily suspended. In the waking world, we are constantly defining ourselves through our roles, our possessions, and our histories. But in this deep, quiet part of the night, those definitions lose their meaning. You are not a parent, a worker, a friend, or a stranger. You are simply a manifestation of life, a complex and beautiful biological process that is taking care of itself. This suspension of identity is a massive relief for the nervous system. It allows the brain to rest from the exhausting task of selfing. In this space, there is a deep, impersonal peace that flows through the nerves like a cooling stream. The scaffolding is being mended, the wires are being insulated, and the sensors are being reset, all within a container of profound, supportive darkness. You can feel the weight of this peace in the way your body has surrendered to the bed. There is no longer any distinction between the effort of resting and the state of rest itself. You are being carried by the night. The internal foresters are finishing their work. The conductor is leading the cells in their harmonious dance, and the very structure of your mind is becoming more resilient and refined. There is nothing you need to do but remain in this state of allowance. The night is a generous host, providing everything you need for this deep-seated recovery. As the hours turn, you are being prepared, not just to face another day, but to inhabit it with a sense of structural integrity and renewed spirit. The foundation is solid, the pathways are clear, and the quiet work of the scaffolding continues in its steady, unhurried way. The restoration of the internal horizons and cognitive space. As the night moves toward its quietest zenith, a subtle yet profound expansion occurs within the mental landscape, a process we might call the restoration of cognitive space. Throughout the day, our attention is constantly being compressed. We are forced to focus on the immediate, the granular, and the urgent. This chronic narrowing of our mental horizon creates a kind of psychological fatigue that is unique to the modern human experience. We feel boxed in by our responsibilities and crowded by the endless stream of information. But in this deep, unobserved portion of the night, the mind begins to stretch its limbs. It moves away from the narrow corridors of task-oriented thinking and begins to inhabit a much larger, more atmospheric territory. This is the stage of the night where the inner horizon is pushed back, allowing the mind to regain its sense of scale and perspective. It is a vital form of healing that restores our ability to think broadly and feel deeply. This expansion is physically supported by the way the brain's default mode network begins to pulse in the absence of external stimuli. When you are awake and focused on a task, this network is largely suppressed, but in the stillness of the night, it becomes the primary architect of your internal experience. It is here that the mind engages in what researchers call autobiographical planning and self-referential processing. However, in the depth of sleep, this isn't the anxious rumination we experience during the day. Instead, it is a gentle weaving of your personal narrative into the larger fabric of human experience. You are moving from the me to the we, and from the now to the always. This shift in perspective is incredibly healing for the nervous system. It reminds the brain that while our individual problems are real, they are part of a much larger, older, and more resilient pattern of life. You are not just a person trying to get through a Tuesday. You are a biological entity participating in a billion-year-old tradition of rest and renewal. Consider the feeling of a room that has been cluttered for years and is suddenly emptied, cleaned, and open to the air. That is what is happening to your psyche in these hours. The clutter of the day, the unfinished sentences, the minor irritations, the visual noise of the city is being cleared out, leaving behind a vast, quiet architecture. In this openness, the mind can finally address the deeper, more foundational questions of our existence, not through logical thought, but through a kind of felt wisdom. We often wake up with a sudden clarity about a life direction or a change in heart, and we wonder where it came from. It came from this period of spatial restoration. The brain needs this empty space to reorganize its highest priorities. Without it, we become reactive and brittle, but with it, we become proactive and fluid. You are essentially reclaiming the territory of your own consciousness, ensuring that you are the master of your internal house, rather than a prisoner of its clutter. This restoration of space also has a direct impact on our emotional regulation. When our mental horizons are narrow, every small setback feels like a catastrophe because it occupies a large percentage of our available attention. But when the mind has been expanded by a night of deep spatial rest, those same setbacks are seen in their proper proportion. They are like small stones in a vast field rather than a wall right in front of your face. This distancing is a key component of resilience. It allows the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm center, to cool down and return to a state of calm observation. As you lie in the dark, you might feel a sense of mental spaciousness, a feeling that your thoughts are no longer bumping into one another. There is room to breathe, room to wonder, and room to simply be. This is the luxury of the night, the gift of infinite internal room. Furthermore, this stage of the night involves a fascinating process of information integration that goes beyond simple memory. The brain is looking for the gist of your life. It is distilling the complexity of your experiences into simple, elegant truths. It is stripping away the details of what happened and keeping the essence of what it meant. This distillation is a form of cognitive healing because it reduces the energy cost of your memories. A distilled truth is much lighter to carry than a trunk full of unorganized facts. As the mind performs this work, it uses the slow, rhythmic pulses of the night to press these truths into the deeper layers of your being. You are becoming more you, not by adding things, but by refining what is already there. The expansive horizon of the night provides the perfect laboratory for this refinement, a place where the heat of the day cannot warp the results. As you continue to drift in this vast internal space, you might notice that the boundaries of your body feel less like a cage and more like a gentle suggestion. You are part of the room, part of the night, and part of the slow, turning world. The restorative work of the horizons is almost complete. The mind has been cleaned, the space has been reclaimed, and the perspective has been restored. You are floating in a sea of potential, a quiet void that is not empty, but full of the silence that precedes a new beginning. There is a profound sense of safety in this vastness. You cannot be lost when you are the space itself. Every breath is a ripple in this internal ocean, a slow and steady confirmation that you are healing from the inside out, preparing to return to the world of form with a spirit that is wide, open, and at peace. The deep physiological synthesis of the midnight hour. As we reach the true midpoint of the night, the body enters a phase of profound chemical synthesis that acts as the ultimate anchor for our long-term health. We have explored the cleaning of the brain and the sorting of memories, but now the focus shifts to the very atoms of our being. This is the hour of the deep metabolic forge. In the waking world, our bodies are primarily in a state of catabolism, breaking down molecules to release the energy needed for movement, speech, and thought. But in this sacred, silent window of the night, the body flips a fundamental biological switch into a state of intense anabolism. This is the period of building, of synthesizing new proteins, and of repairing the microscopic structures of our DNA. It is a process of total cellular reassembly that requires such a vast diversion of internal resources that it can only occur when the heart is slow, the lungs are steady, and the mind is completely submerged in the currents of non-conscious rest. Within this metabolic forge, the body's focus turns to the mitochondria, the ancient organelles that power every single thought and heartbeat you have ever had. Over the course of a day, these tiny power plants become weary. They accumulate oxidative damage, a kind of biological rust that slows down their efficiency. During this specific stage of the night, the body initiates a process called mitophagy, a quality control mechanism where the cells identify worn-out mitochondria and break them down, recycling their parts to build new, more efficient versions. This is why, after a night of truly deep rest, you feel a sense of vitality that is different from the temporary spike of caffeine. It is the feeling of a system that has been upgraded at the cellular level. You are literally more energetic because your cells have been rebuilt to be more effective conduits of life. This is the deepest form of physical healing, a restoration of the very spark that keeps the flame of existence burning. As the mitochondria are refreshed, the body also turns its attention to the complex landscape of the microbiome. We are beginning to understand that the trillions of tiny organisms living within our gut have their own circadian rhythms, and they, too, rely on the stillness of the night to recover. In this hour, the good bacteria are most active in reinforcing the lining of the gut, creating a stronger barrier against the stresses of the outside world. This is a vital part of the mind-body healing loop. A healthy gut lining leads to a calmer nervous system, and a calmer nervous system allows for deeper sleep. It is a virtuous cycle that is maintained by the silence of the room. While you are drifting in the dark, these microscopic allies are working tirelessly to ensure that your internal environment remains a hospitable place for health and peace. You are never truly alone in your rest. You are supported by an entire ecosystem that has evolved to thrive in the rhythm of your sleep. This synthesis also extends to the skeletal system, which we often mistakenly view as a static frame. In reality, bone is a dynamic, living tissue that is constantly being remodeled. During the deep stillness of the night, cells called osteoblasts become active, laying down new bone mineral to replace what has been worn away by the physical stresses of the day. This process is highly dependent on the hormonal shifts that occur during sleep. Without the surge of growth hormone and the suppression of cortisol that we discussed earlier, the bones would slowly become brittle. But tonight, the frame of your body is being reinforced. You are becoming stronger in the dark. The very foundation of your physical self is being shored up, ensuring that you can carry the weight of your life with grace and resilience. You might feel this as a subtle sense of solidity, a feeling that you are becoming more firmly rooted in the space you occupy. Furthermore, this stage of the night involves the synthesis of the neurochemicals that will define your mood tomorrow. The brain is carefully replenishing its stores of serotonin and dopamine, the molecules of well-being and motivation. These are not infinite resources. They are crafted from the amino acids provided by your diet and processed during the quiet hours of the night. If the night is cut short, the cup of these chemicals is only half full, leading to the irritability and low mood we all know too well. But in the fullness of this long rest, the cup is filled to the brim. The brain is preparing a gift for your waking self, the gift of a steady, resilient emotional baseline. This chemical preparation is the reason why the world looks different in the morning. The problems haven't changed, but the chemical lens through which you view them has been cleaned and polished. As you linger in the heart of this metabolic synthesis, you can almost sense the quiet, humming vibration of your own biology. It is a song of creation that happens in total darkness. Every cell in your body is a participant in this grand project of renewal. There is no part of you that is being ignored, no fiber of muscle, no strand of DNA, no fold of tissue is left untouched by the healing tides of the night. You are being woven back together into a more perfect version of yourself, a version that is more capable of handling the complexities of the world. The weight of your body on the mattress is the weight of this important work being finished. You are the vessel, and the night is the artisan, patiently and skillfully restoring you to your original state of wholeness. There is nothing for you to do but allow the process to reach its conclusion, trusting that the dawn will find you renewed, reinforced, and ready. The subtle recalibration of the sensory gateways. As the body remains anchored in its deep metabolic forge, the brain begins a fascinating process of recalibrating the sensory gateways that connect our inner world to the outer environment. During our waking hours, we are subjected to a relentless bombardment of sensory data. The hum of electricity, the flicker of screens, the constant pressure of clothing against our skin, and the myriad scents and sounds of a living world. To prevent us from being overwhelmed, the brain must constantly filter and dampen these signals, a task that requires significant cognitive effort. However, in the profound quiet of the night, the brain can finally lower these defensive barriers and perform a delicate cleaning of the sensory apparatus itself. This is not just a period of inactivity. It is a meticulous reset of our perception. It is as if the windows of a house, which have become blurred by the dust and grit of a long journey, are being carefully polished from the inside out so that the view may be clear once again. This recalibration begins with the auditory system. Even though you are asleep, Your ears remain functional, yet the way the brain interprets sound changes fundamentally. The thalamus, which we have previously noted as the gatekeeper of the mind, enters a state of high selectivity. It monitors the environment for genuine threats, while simultaneously allowing the auditory cortex to rest. During this time, the brain performs a defragging of our acoustic memory. It sorts through the sounds of the day, the tone of a voice, the melody of a song, the jarring noise of a siren, and integrates them into our long-term recognition patterns. This process ensures that when you wake, your hearing is not just sharp, but meaningful. You regain the ability to distinguish the subtle nuances of your environment, such as the specific rustle of leaves or the gentle rhythm of a loved one's breath. It is a restoration of clarity that allows the world to sound new again, stripped of the fatigue that comes from chronic noise exposure. Simultaneously, the visual system, despite the eyes being closed, undergoes a remarkable period of rejuvenation. The eyes are an extension of the brain itself, and the retinas are among the most metabolically active tissues in the entire human body. Throughout the day, they are taxed by the processing of light and movement. During sleep, the lack of external light allows the rhodopsin levels, the light-sensitive pigments in your eyes, to fully replenish. But more importantly, the visual cortex, freed from the duty of mapping the physical world, turns its attention inward. It works in tandem with the dreaming mind to maintain the neural pathways associated with spatial reasoning and object recognition. This is why we can see such vivid, impossible landscapes in our dreams. The brain is exercising its visual muscles in a vacuum, ensuring that the hardware of sight remains robust. When you open your eyes in the morning, the vibrancy of colors and the sharpness of edges are the direct result of this nightly internal maintenance. The sense of touch, proprioception, the awareness of your body's position in space, also undergoes a profound reset. Throughout the day, your nervous system becomes habituated to the constant pressure of the physical world. By the evening, your body map in the somatosensory cortex can become slightly distorted by the tension and fatigue of your movements. During the night, as you lie in a state of relative weightlessness against the mattress, the brain redraws this map. It checks the tension in every muscle spindle and the alignment of every joint. It is a silent, internal roll call of the physical self. This is why we often stretch instinctively upon waking. It is the body's way of verifying the updated map that the brain has created during the night. This recalibration is essential for our physical grace and coordination. It ensures that when you move through the world tomorrow, your body feels like a cohesive, integrated whole, rather than a collection of tired parts. There is also a chemical cleaning of the olfactory and gustatory systems. The receptors in your nose and mouth are constantly replaced, but the neural pathways that interpret smell and taste require the quiet of the night to maintain their sensitivity. We often forget how much our mood and our sense of safety are tied to these chemical senses. A familiar scent can trigger a powerful memory or a feeling of home, while a certain taste can provide a sense of nourishment. By resetting these pathways, the night ensures that our sensory connection to the world remains rich and evocative. It prevents the numbing effect that occurs when we are overstimulated. In the stillness of the night, the brain is essentially preparing a clean palette for the experiences of the next day, ensuring that the first sip of coffee or the scent of the morning air will be experienced with full intensity. As you lie there, you can feel the results of this sensory reset as a deepening of your relaxation. The world feels distant, not because it has gone away, but because your mind has successfully retreated into its own pristine laboratory. You are in a space of total sensory integrity, where the internal and external are perfectly balanced. The gateways are being tended, the lenses are being cleaned, and the maps are being redrawn. This is a quiet, reliable form of healing that allows you to return to the world not as a weary traveler, but as a fresh observer. Every breath you take in the dark is a part of this preparation, a slow and steady transition toward a state of heightened awareness and renewed appreciation for the tapestry of life. You are safe in the hands of your own biology, drifting in the quiet workshop where the senses are made new, the quiet consolidation of the emotional self. As we drift further into the second half of the night, the brain enters a phase of profound emotional synthesis that is perhaps the most delicate form of healing we ever experience. We have discussed the archival work of memory and the physical cleaning of the tissues, but there is a deeper, more ethereal layer to our recovery, the mending of the emotional self. Throughout the day, we are subjected to a constant stream of micro-interactions that leave behind a residue of feeling. A sharp word from a colleague, a moment of fleeting self-doubt, or the weight of an unsaid thought. These are the emotional loose ends that the mind must tie up before the sun rises. In this quiet period, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex engage in a silent negotiation. This is not a logical debate, but a chemical and electrical balancing act, where the raw, reactive energy of our feelings is integrated into the stable, enduring structure of our personality. It is the process of turning a reaction into a reflection, ensuring that the storms of yesterday do not become the climate of tomorrow. The brain achieves this through a fascinating mechanism of neural replay that occurs in the absence of external pressure. During the day, our emotional responses are often hurried and defensive. We react to survive the moment. But in the stillness of the night, the brain can afford to be more curious and less guarded. It revisits the emotional tags of the day's events and asks a series of silent, intuitive questions. Is this fear still relevant? Can this frustration be converted into a lesson? Is this joy worth magnifying? This is the true meaning of processing our feelings. It is a slow, rhythmic sanding down of the sharp edges of our experiences. You can imagine your mind as a master weaver at a loom, taking the tangled, colorful threads of the day's emotions and carefully smoothing them out, ensuring they fit into the larger, more coherent pattern of your life. This weaving is what gives us our sense of continuity, the feeling that despite the changes of the day, we are still fundamentally ourselves. This emotional healing is deeply tied to the specific neurochemical environment of the late night hours. As we move closer to the morning, the brain begins to modulate its sensitivity to various neurotransmitters, preparing the emotional soil for the next day. This is a period of intense psychological resilience building. By stripping the stress chemicals away from our memories, as we explored earlier, the brain allows us to develop what psychologists call perspective. Perspective is the ability to see an event as a part of a whole rather than the whole itself. In the darkness, your mind is creating a healthy distance between you and your challenges. It is reminding the nervous system that you are the sky, and your emotions are simply the weather passing through. This realization is incredibly restorative. It lowers the internal noise floor of the psyche, creating a sense of spaciousness and peace that is difficult to find in the cluttered light of day. There is also a profound sense of forgiveness that happens in this biological state. Not necessarily the conscious act of forgiving another, but a systemic, cellular release of tension. The body cannot hold on to a grudge and enter deep, restorative sleep at the same time. The two states are biologically incompatible. Therefore, the very act of remaining asleep is a form of letting go. The muscles of the face, the chest, and the belly, which often hold the physical memory of our frustrations, are forced to relax. This physical surrender sends a powerful signal back to the brain, confirming that the battle of the day is over and the peace of the night has been won. You are, in effect, being forgiven by your own biology. Your system is clearing the slate, refusing to carry the toxic weight of old stress into the new morning. It is a quiet, reliable mercy that happens every single night, regardless of how the day went. As this emotional integration nears completion, the mind begins to foster a sense of internal security. This is the feeling that, regardless of what the future holds, the core of your being is intact and capable. This inner security is the foundation of mental health. It is built in the dark, through the successful navigation of the night cycles. Every time your brain successfully moves from a state of high-intensity dreaming back into a state of deep, quiet rest, it is practicing the art of self-regulation. It is learning how to come back to center. This practice is what allows you to remain calm under pressure during your waking hours. You are not just resting, you are training your nervous system to be a more stable and resilient vessel for your consciousness. The quiet of the room is the training ground for the strength you will show tomorrow. You can feel this emotional settling as a profound stillness in your thoughts. The mental chatter that may have haunted your evening has finally faded into a distant, unrecognizable hum. What remains is a sense of pure, uncomplicated presence. You are not thinking about your feelings. You are simply existing within a state of emotional equilibrium. The weaver has finished the day's portion of the tapestry. The edges are smooth, the colors are integrated, and the pattern is clear. There is a deep, quiet satisfaction in this state of completion. You are safe, you are whole, and you are being prepared to meet the dawn with a heart that is light and a mind that is clear. The night is a gentle guardian of your inner world, ensuring that when you wake, you do so with a spirit that is renewed and an emotional horizon that is wide and bright. The metabolic whisper of the late night hours, as the clock moves toward the deep, silent hours of the pre-dawn, the body's focus shifts from the grand architectural repairs of the muscles and bones to a more subtle, molecular form of maintenance. This is the hour of the metabolic whisper, a period where the body's chemical signaling becomes incredibly fine-tuned and delicate. While the world outside is at its coldest and most still, your internal furnace is operating at a precise, low-energy simmer. This is the time when the body addresses the health of its smallest components, the individual cells and the complex pathways that allow them to communicate. In this state of profound repose, the brain and the body work together to perform a systemic audit of your energy reserves. It is a moment of deep biological reflection, where the lessons of the day's exertion are converted into the fuel for tomorrow's vitality. The urgency of the daytime has been replaced by a slow, methodical rhythm that ensures no part of your physical self is left behind in the journey toward restoration. One of the most critical aspects of this phase is the regulation of insulin sensitivity. Throughout the day, every time we eat or experience stress, our insulin levels fluctuate as our body manages the sugar in our blood. This is a demanding process that can leave our cells feeling tired or less responsive to these vital signals. During the late night hours, in the absence of food and the presence of deep, restorative sleep, the body performs a profound reset of its insulin receptors. It is as if the cells are being recalibrated to recognize the signals of nourishment more effectively. This nightly reset is a cornerstone of metabolic health. It ensures that your body can manage its energy efficiently and maintain a stable internal environment. This is why a night of deep, uninterrupted rest often leaves us feeling physically lighter and more capable. The metabolic fog has been lifted, and the pathways of energy are once again clear and responsive. Simultaneously, the body is busy managing its levels of growth hormone and IGF-1, the master builders of the human system. While we discussed their role in physical repair earlier, in these late-night hours, their work becomes more about cellular longevity. They are scanning the body for signs of cellular senescence, cells that have stopped dividing but refuse to clear out. The body uses this quiet window to clean up these lingering cells, a process that is essential for preventing chronic inflammation and maintaining youthful vigor. This is the true anti-aging work of the night. It is not something that can be achieved with a cream or a supplement. It is a biological gift that is only granted in the depths of surrendered sleep. You can imagine your cells as tiny lanterns being cleaned and refilled with oil, ensuring that they will burn brightly and steadily when the day eventually returns. There is also a fascinating process of hormonal crosstalk occurring between the brain and the adrenal glands. Throughout the day, the adrenals are often called upon to produce the chemicals of fight or flight. This can lead to a state of adrenal fatigue, where the body feels perpetually wired but tired. In the pre-dawn hours, if the sleep is deep enough, the brain sends a series of gentle, inhibitory signals to the adrenals, effectively telling them to stand down. This allows the adrenal cortex to replenish its stores of essential precursors. This is the biological foundation of calm. By allowing the adrenals to rest completely, the body ensures that you will not wake up in a state of high alert. Instead, you will wake with a sense of quiet readiness, a state where you have access to your energy, but are not being driven by it. It is the difference between a racing engine and a powerful, steady hum. As this chemical recalibration continues, the liver, the great laboratory of the body, is performing its own specialized work. While the rest of the body is still, the liver is busy processing the metabolic byproducts of the day, neutralizing toxins, and preparing the blood for another cycle of life. It is also managing the body's glycogen stores, ensuring that there is a steady, slow-release supply of energy available for the brain while you sleep. This ensures that your blood sugar remains stable throughout the night, preventing those sudden, jarring awakenings that occur when the body senses an energy crisis. This internal stability is what allows the sleep to remain deep and the dreams to remain peaceful. You are being supported by a vast, invisible network of biological systems that are working in perfect synchronicity to keep you safe and nourished in the dark. The beauty of this metabolic whisper is its total lack of effort. You are not doing health, you are becoming it. Every slow, easy breath you take is a signal to your cells that the environment is safe for repair. The heaviness you feel in your limbs is the physical manifestation of this deep-seated work. The mind, meanwhile, has moved into a state of restful awareness, a place where thoughts are like distant clouds on a vast, dark horizon. You are existing at the very center of your own biological wisdom. The repair is happening. The receptors are resetting. The lanterns are being cleaned. And the laboratory is finishing its work. There is a profound sense of trust in this state. A trust that your body knows exactly how to return to its original state of wholeness. The night is almost over its peak, and as the tides of your biology begin to shift toward the morning, you are being carried forward on a wave of quiet, renewed strength. The rhythmic restoration of the cardiovascular landscape. As the deep currents of the night move toward their most profound stillness, the heart and the vast network of the circulatory system enter a phase of rest that is essential for the long-term integrity of the human vessel. Throughout the day, your heart is a tireless sentinel, responding to every spike in emotion, every physical exertion, and every environmental stressor. It accelerates when you are excited and tightens when you are anxious, acting as the primary drumbeat of your survival. But in these quiet hours, when the world is draped in shadow and your breath has found its most natural, unforced cadence, the heart finally receives its own form of healing. It slows to a rhythmic, steady pulse that is lower than anything achieved during conscious relaxation. This nocturnal dipping of blood pressure and heart rate is not merely a pause, it is a vital mechanical and biological recalibration that protects the delicate walls of your arteries and allows the heart muscle itself to recover its elasticity. During this period of cardiovascular quietude, the endothelial cells, the thin, precious lining of your blood vessels, are hard at work. These cells are the gatekeepers of your vascular health, responsible for regulating blood flow and preventing the buildup of inflammation. Under the pressure of daily life, these cells can become stressed or damaged, but in the low-pressure environment of deep sleep, they initiate a series of molecular repairs. They produce nitric oxide, a molecule that helps the vessels relax and remain supple. It is as if the thousands of miles of pipes within your body are being gently flushed and polished. This ensures that when the demands of the day return, your circulatory system is not rigid or brittle, but fluid and resilient. There is a deep, quiet comfort in the thought that while you are completely still, the very rivers of life within you are being tended to with such microscopic care ensuring that the flow of oxygen and nutrients remains unobstructed and pure. This stage of the night also sees a fascinating synchronization between the heart and the lungs, a phenomenon known as respiratory sinus arrhythmia, which becomes most pronounced during deep rest. As you inhale, your heart rate subtly picks up, and as you exhale, it gently slows down. This rhythmic breathing of the heart is a sign of a highly functional and healthy autonomic nervous system. It indicates that the vagus nerve, the great peace pipe of the body, is in full control, sending signals of safety and recovery to every major organ. In this state, the body is not just resting, it is practicing a form of biological harmony. You might feel this as a sensation of total openness in the chest, a feeling that your breath is no longer something you do, but something that happens to you, like the rising and falling of the tide. The boundaries between your internal rhythms and the quiet air of the room seem to dissolve, leaving you in a state of perfect, effortless synchronization. Furthermore, the blood itself undergoes a process of refinement during these hours. The spleen and the liver work together to filter the blood, removing old cells and recycling their components, while the bone marrow continues its quiet task of producing fresh red and white blood cells. This is a systemic refresh that ensures your blood remains an effective carrier of both life and defense. The immune cells that circulate in your plasma use this period of low turbulence to migrate to the lymph nodes, where they exchange information about the pathogens they may have encountered during the day. It is a nightly briefing for your internal army, conducted in the absolute silence of the cardiovascular theatre. By the time you wake, your blood will be chemically and biologically different than it was when you went to bed. Cleaner, richer, and more prepared to sustain the complex demands of your waking life. The psychological impact of this cardiovascular rest is profound. There is an ancient, deep-seated link between the rhythm of the heart and our sense of emotional security. When the heart is allowed to beat slowly and steadily for several hours, it sends a powerful message to the brain that the coast is clear. This feedback loop is what allows the deeper layers of the subconscious to let go of their last remaining defenses. You are no longer on guard. You are no longer braced for impact. The armored feeling we often carry in our shoulders and chest during the day is replaced by a sense of fluid, heavy relaxation. You are resting in the trust that your heart knows its way through the dark, and that it has the strength to keep the life fire burning without any conscious intervention from you. It is the ultimate form of surrender, placing your life in the hands of a rhythm that has been steady since months before you were born. As you linger in this state of cardiovascular grace, you can feel the quiet power of this internal stillness. The bed beneath you feels like a vast, supportive ocean, and you are floating on the surface of your own recovery. The repairs are being made, the vessels are being polished, and the heart is gaining the strength it needs for the miles ahead. There is no rush to meet the morning. The night still has gifts to give, and your heart is currently receiving the greatest gift of all, the freedom to beat for itself in its own time and in its own beautiful, unhurried way. Each slow, deep pulse is a confirmation of your vitality and a step further into the heart of your own restoration. You are safe, you are steady, and you are being renewed from the very center of your being. The deep integration of the musculoskeletal ghost map. As the night moves into its final, most mysterious quadrant, the relationship between the mind and the physical body undergoes one last profound recalibration. Throughout the day, your muscles are not just tools for movement, they are recorders of your psychological state. Every moment of tension, every suppressed emotion, and every focused effort leaves a minute physical signature in the fibers of your muscles and the fascia that binds them. We carry the posture of our anxieties in the set of our shoulders and the clench of our jaw. But in this late stage of rest, after the metabolic cleaning and the cardiovascular slowing have reached their peak, the brain begins a process of ghost mapping. This is a neurological reset where the brain's motor cortex sends out silent, sub-threshold signals to every muscle group in the body, not to move them, but to check their 0 point. It is a way of clearing the physical memory of the day's stress, ensuring that you do not wake up with the same body armor you wore yesterday. Imagine the fascia, the silvery, web-like connective tissue that wraps around every muscle and organ, as a sophisticated sensory organ in its own right. During the day, under the influence of gravity and repetitive movement, this web can become constricted, dehydrated, or stuck. In the profound stillness of the pre-dawn hours, as your core temperature remains low and your limbs remain heavy, the fascia begins to rehydrate. The fluid that has been circulating through your system, enriched by the night's chemical repairs, moves into these tight spaces. The knots of the day are not just physically smoothed out, they are neurologically released. The brain is essentially re-inhabiting the body, moving through the musculoskeletal system like a technician calibrating a delicate instrument. This is why, in the deep reaches of the night, you might feel a sudden, spontaneous release in a limb, or a sense that you are sinking even deeper into the mattress. Your body is losing its shape so that it can find a better one in the morning. This process of ghost mapping is also crucial for the consolidation of physical skills. If you learned a new movement today, whether it was a complex task at work, a new chord on an instrument, or simply a more efficient way to walk, the brain uses this quiet window to hardwire that movement into your procedural memory. In the silence of the night, the motor cortex replays these movements at an accelerated rate, strengthening the synaptic pathways that make the action feel like second nature. This is the hidden secret of human mastery. We do not just learn while we are awake. We perfect our learning while we are asleep. The mind is taking the clumsy, conscious efforts of the afternoon and turning them into the elegant, unconscious grace of the morning. You are becoming more capable without lifting a finger, simply by allowing the brain to conduct its nightly rehearsal in the theater of your stillness. Furthermore, this stage of the night involves a significant recalibration of the proprioceptive sense, the internal GPS that tells you where your body ends and the world begins. When we are exhausted, our sense of our own physical boundaries can become blurred or distorted. We feel clumsy or disconnected. During this late-night reset, the brain's parietal lobes work to sharpen the resolution of this internal map. It is a form of neurological grooming. The brain is checking the input from every joint and tendon, ensuring that the signals are clear and the feedback loops are accurate. This creates a sense of embodied security. When the brain knows exactly where the body is and what state it is in, the amygdala can remain at its lowest level of arousal. This is the physiological basis for the feeling of wholeness we experience after a good night's rest. The sense that all our parts are present, accounted for, and working in harmony. As this mapping continues, the body's energetic signature is also being balanced. While we speak of muscles and nerves, there is also the simple, profound reality of the body as an electrical system. The tiny voltages that allow your heart to beat and your thoughts to fire are subject to the same laws of physics as any other circuit. During the day, our bioelectric field can become chaotic, influenced by the electromagnetic noise of our environment and the internal static of our thoughts. In the pre-dawn quiet, this field settles. The electrical resistance of the skin changes, and the brain's electromagnetic output moves into a state of high coherence. You are grounding yourself in the most literal sense. The static is being cleared, the voltage of your system is being normalized, and you are returning to a state of electrical equilibrium. This is a subtle, almost imperceptible form of healing, yet it is what allows you to feel recharged rather than just rested. You can feel the results of this ghost mapping as a profound sense of physical transparency. You are no longer aware of the ache in your back or the tightness in your neck. Those signals have been muted by the brain's recalibration. You are simply a consciousness floating in a perfectly tuned vessel. The bed is no longer a separate object. It is the field upon which your recovery is unfolding. The room is quiet, the air is cool, and your internal technician is finishing the final checks on your musculoskeletal system. Everything is being prepared for the transition back to the world of gravity and movement. But for now, there is only the stillness, the rehydration of the web, and the silent, beautiful rehearsal of the life you are about to lead. You are being rebuilt from the blueprints of your own potential, ensuring that when you finally stand, you do so with a body that is light, a mind that is clear, and a spirit that is ready to move with the rhythm of the new day. The cooling of the psychological embers. As the night stretches toward its final phase, a specific and quiet form of mental distillation takes place, something we might call the cooling of the psychological embers. Throughout our waking hours, our minds are constantly generating heat, the friction of decision-making, the sparks of social interaction, and the smoldering energy of unresolved questions. This mental heat is a necessary part of a productive life. But if it is never allowed to cool, it begins to warp our perception, making us impulsive, irritable, and short-sighted. In this pre-dawn window, the brain performs a final, deep-level cooling. This is the period where the emotional smoke of the day is finally cleared from the air, allowing the mind to see its internal landscape with absolute, crystalline clarity. It is not an analytical clarity, but an elemental one. You are no longer trying to solve the puzzles of your life. Instead, you are simply allowing the pieces to settle where they may. This state of non-striving is the ultimate psychological balm, a moment of profound internal silence that prepares the foundation for a new perspective. This cooling process is biologically mirrored in the brain's continued management of its chemical environment. By this hour, the levels of adenosine, the chemical that builds up throughout the day to create sleep pressure, have been almost entirely cleared. This means that for the first time in nearly 20 hours, your brain is operating in a state of chemical purity. However, because you are still submerged in the sleep state, this purity isn't directed toward outward action, but toward inward stability. The prefrontal cortex, which acts as the executive controller of the mind, is performing a soft reboot. It is checking the integrity of its connections to the deeper, more ancient parts of the brain, such as the limbic system. This ensures that when you wake, your higher mind and your instinctual mind are in conversation rather than in conflict. It is the restoration of the internal hierarchy of the self, where the calm, rational observer is placed back in the driver's seat, well rested and ready to navigate the complexities of the world. During this time, the narrative self, the part of you that tells the story of your life, undergoes a process of gentle simplification. We often carry a great deal of unnecessary baggage in our self-perception. The roles we think we must play, the mistakes we believe define us, and the expectations we feel we must meet. In the deep, cool shadows of the early morning, these stories lose their weight. They are revealed to be what they are: temporary constructs. This narrative thinning is a vital form of healing. It prevents us from becoming too rigid in our identities. It allows for the possibility of change. In the silence of this hour, you are essentially a blank slate, a being without a doing. This freedom from the self is a profound relief for the nervous system. It allows the deep-seated tension of maintaining a persona to dissipate, leaving behind a core of quiet, unshakable peace. You are not your job, your worries, or your past. You are the silent consciousness that remains when the embers of the day have finally gone out. This stage also involves a fascinating phenomenon known as synaptic homeostasis, which we touched upon earlier, but which now reaches its conclusion. The brain has finished its pruning and its strengthening. Now, it focuses on the resting potential of its neurons. Each nerve cell is like a tiny battery that must be charged to a very specific voltage to function correctly. If the voltage is too high, the brain is jittery and anxious. If it is too low, the brain is sluggish and depressed. In these final hours, the brain uses its internal electrical regulators to ensure that every single neuron is sitting at its perfect, ready-to-fire potential. This is why a full night's sleep feels so different from a short nap. It is the difference between a quick charge and a deep, systemic calibration. Your brain is becoming a high-resolution instrument once again, capable of detecting the finest nuances of the world around you. This electrical balance is the hidden source of patience, the ability to witness the world without immediately reacting to it. The physical sensation of this psychological cooling is one of immense spaciousness. You might feel as though your mind has expanded to fill the entire room, or perhaps even the entire night. The boundaries of the ego have become so thin that they are almost transparent. In this state, there is no problem that can survive. A problem requires a perceiver who is separate from the situation and struggling against it. But in this unified state of pre-dawn rest, the struggle is absent. There is only the flow of existence. This is the peace that passes understanding, a biological state of grace that is the birthright of every human being. You are floating in the cool, clear waters of your own essential nature. The air in your lungs feels like it belongs to the world as much as it belongs to you. The weight of your body is the weight of the mountain, and the rhythm of your heart is the rhythm of the stars. As you linger in this state of psychological purity, the night begins its very slow transition toward the light. But there is no need to rush. This final period of cooling is when the most profound insights are often quietly planted in the subconscious. They aren't loud thoughts. They are more like the subtle scent of rain before it arrives. You are being prepared for a day of clarity, of kindness, and of presence. The embers are cold, the air is clear, and the internal horizon is beginning to glow with the first faint hint of possibility. You are whole, you are balanced, and you are deep within the sanctuary of your own restoration. Every second spent in this state is a gift to your future self, a deposit of calm that you will be able to draw upon in the hours to come. The work is almost done, and the silence is perfect. The delicate transition towards the light of awareness. As the deep, velvet darkness of the night begins its incredibly slow and subtle thinning, the body and mind initiate the first tentative steps of the return journey. This is not the sudden jolt of an alarm, but a biological dawn that begins long before your eyes eventually open. In this window, the brain's internal master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, begins to sense the infinitesimal shift in the Earth's rotation and the gradual change in the quality of the atmosphere. Even in a darkened room, your biology is tuned to the planetary rhythm. It begins to shift its focus from the deep, structural repairs of the midnight hours toward the preparation for activity. This transition is one of the most sophisticated maneuvers in the human repertoire, a gradual warm-up of the entire system that ensures the transition from the depths of the unconscious to the clarity of the waking world is smooth, safe, and integrated. It is a slow-motion awakening of the spirit, a gentle unfolding of the self that has been so carefully mended in the quiet workshop of the night. The primary architect of this transition is the gradual rise of your core body temperature. For several hours, you have been in a state of metabolic cool-down, which facilitated the deep cellular repairs and the cleaning of the neural pathways. Now, the hypothalamus begins to turn up the internal thermostat. This rise in temperature is a signal to every cell in your body that the period of deep dormancy is coming to a close. As the warmth begins to spread from your core back to your extremities, the blood flow increases and the muscles receive a fresh supply of oxygenated blood. This is the physiological thaw that precedes movement. You might feel a subtle shift in your comfort under the blankets, a sense that the weight of the covers is becoming more present as your tactile senses begin to sharpen. This thermal rise is perfectly synchronized with the brain's shifting frequencies, moving away from the slow wave delta and back through the rhythmic theta waves that characterize the borders of sleep. Simultaneously, the endocrine system begins its own preparatory dance. The cortisol dip that characterized the midnight healing is replaced by what scientists call the cortisol awakening response. This is not the cortisol of stress or panic, but the cortisol of readiness. It is a natural, healthy surge that provides the spark necessary to reignite the metabolic engine. It works in tandem with a gradual decrease in melatonin, the hormone of darkness. This seesaw of chemistry is the biological equivalent of a sunrise. It prepares the heart to beat with a bit more vigor and the lungs to expand with a bit more depth. It is a fascinating example of how the body anticipates its needs. You are being prepared for the world before you even know you are in it. This ensures that when you do finally wake, you are not starting from zero, but are already operating at a functional baseline of energy and alertness. In the mind, the gatekeeper of the thalamus begins to loosen its grip on the sensory gateways. The external world begins to bleed into the internal landscape in a way that is non-threatening and soft. A distant bird, the hum of a passing vehicle, or the specific way the air moves in the room. These sensations are no longer filtered out as noise, but are integrated into the final light dreams of the morning. This is the time of lucid drifting, a state where you are partially aware of your surroundings, but still deeply connected to the peace of your rest. It is a period of immense creative potential, where the insights of the night meet the possibilities of the day. The brain is practicing the art of attentional focus, moving its spotlight from the vast, dark theater of the subconscious back toward the specific, immediate reality of the physical world. It is a graceful return, a docking of the ship after a long and successful voyage through the silent sea. This phase of the night also involves a final emotional briefing. The brain takes one last look at the integrated memories and the sanded down emotions of the previous day and creates a mood set for the morning. Because the repair work was successful, this mood set is typically characterized by a sense of neutrality and potential. The heaviness of yesterday has been processed. What remains is a clean, quiet readiness. It is as if the mind is laying out your mental clothes for the day, ensuring that you wake with a spirit that is unburdened and a perspective that is wide. You are being gifted with a fresh start in the most literal biological sense. The cognitive space we explored earlier is now being prepared to receive new information, and the sensory gateways are being calibrated for their first encounter with the morning light. You are standing on the threshold of a new beginning, supported by the entirety of the night's wisdom. As you linger in this pre-dawn glow, you can feel the quiet strength that has been built within you over the past several hours. The repairs are solid, the cleaning is complete, the memories are filed, and the systems are synchronized. The room is still quiet, and the light is still soft, but the you that is experiencing this moment is fundamentally different from the you that lay down to rest. You have been through a total systemic renewal. Every breath you take now is a bit more intentional, a bit more connected to the waking world. You are not rushing. You are simply allowing the natural momentum of your biology to carry you forward. The night has done its work, and it has done it well. You are safe, you are whole, and you are beginning to stir with the quiet, unshakable confidence of a person who has been truly and deeply restored. The slow awakening of the social and empathic mind. As the light begins to subtly shift from a deep, bruised purple to the first translucent grays of the morning, the brain initiates one of its final and most sophisticated recovery tasks. the restoration of the social and empathic circuitry. Throughout the day, our interactions with others, the subtle reading of faces, the interpretation of tone, and the complex dance of empathy require an immense amount of neural energy. This social brain can become frayed by the end of a long day, leading to what we often describe as compassion fatigue or social withdrawal. In this delicate, final transition, the brain's medial prefrontal cortex and the mirror neuron system, which allow us to connect with the feelings of others, undergo a specialized recalibration. While you are still suspended in the soft weight of your final dreams, the mind is essentially warming up your capacity for connection. It is smoothing over the social abrasions of yesterday and preparing a fresh layer of patience and understanding, ensuring that when you first look into the eyes of another person today, you do so with a gaze that is clear and a heart that is open. This social restoration is deeply connected to the replenishment of oxytocin and the balancing of the various bonding neurochemicals that have been quietly synthesized during the night. In the silence of the room, the brain is reinforcing the pathways that allow for trust and cooperation. It is a biological paradox that we must be entirely alone in the darkness to regain the strength to be truly together in the light. This is why a night of poor sleep often leaves us feeling short or disconnected from our loved ones. The social brain simply didn't have the time to complete its morning rehearsal. But tonight, the process is reaching its natural conclusion. The mind is revisiting the templates of your most important relationships, stripping away the minor irritations and keeping the foundational bonds of affection and loyalty. You are being prepared to return to the human fold, not as a defensive island, but as a bridge. Consider the feeling of a musical instrument being meticulously tuned before a performance. That is what is happening to your empathic sense in these hours. The strings of your emotional resonance, which may have been pulled too tight or left too slack by the events of the day, are being brought back to their perfect pitch. This tuning allows you to navigate the complexities of human emotion with a sense of unforced grace. When you are socially well rested, you don't have to try to be kind or effort to be understanding. Those qualities flow naturally from a nervous system that feels safe and integrated. This is a profound form of healing that extends beyond the individual and into the community. By resting deeply, you are performing an act of service for everyone you will encounter tomorrow, ensuring that you bring a presence of calm and stability to your corner of the world. During this phase, the brain also conducts a final ego check. In the deepest parts of the night, as we explored, the ego, the I that wants and fears, was largely dissolved. As you move back toward wakefulness, this ego begins to reform. But in this ideal recovery cycle, it reforms with more humility and less urgency. The brain integrates the impersonal piece of the delta and REM states into the personal identity of the waking self. This creates a sense of balanced perspective, where you can care about your goals and your life without being consumed by them. It is the restoration of the witness within you, the part of your consciousness that can observe your own thoughts and feelings without being swept away by them. This internal distance is the hallmark of psychological health, and it is forged in the quiet, transitional moments of the pre-dawn. Physically, you might notice that your breathing has become slightly more rhythmic and purposeful, yet it still carries the deep, effortless quality of the night. Your hands and feet might feel a gentle tingling as the microcirculation fully returns to the skin's surface, a sensation of coming back into the shell. This physical re-inhabitation is the anchor for your social readiness. When you feel comfortable in your own skin, you are naturally more receptive to others. The brain's social safety system is checking the environment and your own internal state, and it is finding everything in order. You are not a creature of prey, nor are you a predator. You are a social being, returning to a world of shared meaning. This sense of belonging is a powerful biological signal that lowers inflammation and supports the continued health of the heart. As the silence of the room begins to vibrate with the coming day, you can feel this social warmth beginning to glow within you. It is a quiet, steady flame that has been tended by the night. You are ready to listen, ready to sway, and ready to participate in the grand, messy, and beautiful tapestry of human life once again. The clutter of old arguments and the noise of old social anxieties have been cleared away, leaving behind a pristine space for new connections. The night has protected your vulnerability and turned it into a source of strength. You are whole, you are empathic, and you are prepared. The dawn is no longer a distant promise, it is a rising reality, and you are meeting it with a spirit that has been perfectly tuned for the music of the day. The final convergence of the internal and external horizons. As the very first slivers of genuine light begin to press against the edges of the world, the mind enters its final, most delicate stage of synthesis, a process we might call the convergence of the horizons. For many hours, your consciousness has been focused almost entirely on the internal landscape, navigating the deep valleys of the subconscious and the quiet workshops of cellular repair. Now, like a diver slowly ascending through layers of increasingly bright water, the mind begins to integrate that internal wisdom with the growing reality of the external world. This is the moment where the dream logic of the night meets the rational logic of the day. It is a period of profound psychological transition where the insights gained in the darkness are translated into the language of action. You are not just waking up, you are landing back into your life, but you are doing so with a hull that has been reinforced and a compass that has been meticulously recalibrated by the stars of your own inner sky. This convergence is physically signaled by the final, graceful arc of the circadian rhythm. The brain's production of cortisol reaches its peak, providing a clean, steady current of alertness that flows through the nervous system. At the same time, the last remnants of sleep-inducing chemicals are being recycled into the precursors of focus and motivation. The brain's neural networks, which have been operating in a state of high connectivity and loose association throughout the night, now begin to tighten and sharpen. The prefrontal cortex fully re-engages, but it does so without the frantic, scattered energy that often characterize a mind that hasn't rested. Instead, it operates with a cool efficiency. It begins to scan the day ahead, not with anxiety, but with a sense of structural preparedness. The cognitive space we reclaimed in the middle of the night is now being mapped with the goals and intentions of the morning. It is a moment of total mental alignment, where the you that dreams, and the you that acts are finally standing on the same ground. During this final transition, the body's proprioceptive ghost map is fully locked into place. Your brain has finished its check of every muscle, joint, and nerve fiber, and it now activates the full resolution of your physical presence. You might feel a sudden, clear awareness of the weight of your body, the texture of the sheets, and the specific temperature of the air against your skin. This is the return to the vessel in its most complete form. The transparency of the deep night is being replaced by a sense of solid, capable density. You are becoming a physical entity again, but one that is remarkably free of the static and noise of yesterday's fatigue. The fascia has rehydrated, the synapses have been scaled, and the heart is beating with a slow, powerful confidence. This physical readiness is the essential foundation for your mental clarity. Because the body feels safe and correct, the mind is free to look outward with curiosity rather than inward with concern. There is also a fascinating memory gating process that occurs in these final minutes. The brain performs a last-second filter of the night's dreams, deciding which emotional lessons to keep in the foreground and which narrative details to allow to fade into the background. This is why dreams often feel so vivid in the moment of waking, but disappear so quickly once we engage with the world. The brain is prioritizing the emotional metadata, the feeling of being resolved, or the sense of a new insight, over the literal imagery of the dream theater. It is keeping the wisdom and discarding the noise. This ensuring that you wake with the result of the night's work rather than the process of it. You carry the strength of the repair without having to remember the struggle of the mending. This is a quiet, elegant form of psychological hygiene that allows you to step into the morning with a clean slate and a focused intent. As you linger in this final threshold, you can feel the world beginning to wake up around you. The silence of the room is no longer the heavy, protective silence of midnight. It is the expectant, pregnant silence of the dawn. The air feels thinner, sharper, and more full of potential. You are in a state of unshakable neutrality, a place where you are neither dwelling on the past nor rushing into the future. You are simply present at the point where the night ends and the day begins. This 0 point of consciousness is the ultimate goal of the healing journey. It is the place from which all truly creative and compassionate action arises. By allowing yourself to experience this full convergence, you are ensuring that your return to the world is not a collision, but a graceful integration. You are a biological system that has been perfectly restored, a mind that has been cleared, and a spirit that has been renewed. The work of the night is finished. The archivists have filed the last pages. The street sweepers have cleared the last of the debris, and the weavers have finished the tapestry. Every cell in your body is now vibrating with the slow, steady hum of the morning. You are standing at the very edge of the light, supported by hours of profound, invisible labor. There is nothing left to do but breathe into this state of readiness. The transition is almost complete. In a few moments, the first genuine thoughts of the day will arrive, but they will arrive in a mind that is spacious and calm. You are whole, you are capable, and you are deep within the grace of your own restoration. The horizons have met, The map is clear, and the path forward is open. You are ready to step back into the world, not as you were, but as you have become in the beautiful, restorative dark. The final awakening into the landscape of renewed potential. We have reached the ultimate threshold, the quiet culmination of a journey that has spanned the vast, invisible architecture of the human night. As the light in the room begins to take on a definitive shape, casting soft, elongated shadows that anchor you back to the physical world, the final phase of your restoration is completing its work. This is the moment of the grand synthesis, where every microscopic repair, every emotional sanding, and every chemical recalibration that we have explored over the last 20 blocks comes together to form the unified presence of your waking self. The you that is currently breathing in the cool air of the morning is a masterpiece of biological persistence, a system that has, through no effort of your own, dismantled the exhaustion of yesterday and rebuilt a sanctuary of readiness for today. This final block is not just an end, but a slow, deliberate bridge into a new state of being, where the silence of the night becomes the foundation for the music of the day. The first genuine awareness of the morning is often a sensation of weight, not a heavy, burdened weight, but a grounded, purposeful density. Your limbs, which were once suspended in the weightlessness of deep sleep, now feel connected to the Earth's gravity again. This is the result of the musculoskeletal ghost map being fully activated. The brain has finished its final diagnostic check, and the signals being sent to your muscles are now clear, steady, and coordinated. You might feel a natural urge to stretch, a slow, lengthening motion that fans out through your fingers and toes. This is the body's way of waking up the fascia, moving the freshly filtered blood through the tissues, and confirming that the structural scaffolding is ready for movement. It is a moment of profound physical integrity. You are inhabiting a vessel that has been polished, tightened, and oiled in the dark. And as you move, you do so with a sense of unforced grace that was missing just a few hours ago. In the mind, the cognitive space we reclaimed during the midnight hours is now filled with a clean, steady light. The clutter of the previous day's unfinished thoughts has been entirely cleared away, leaving behind a vast, quiet field of potential. When you think of the tasks ahead of you now, they do not appear as a wall of obstacles, but as a series of manageable steps. This is the gift of the perspective we built during the emotional synthesis of the night. Because the amygdala has been cooled and the prefrontal cortex has been rebooted, your relationship to your own life has changed. You are no longer reacting to your circumstances. You are prepared to meet them. This internal distance, the ability to witness your day before you live it, is the highest form of mental health. It allows you to move through the world with a cool head and a warm heart, a balance that is only possible when the nervous system has been truly and deeply restored. The emotional baseline you are waking with is one of quiet neutrality. This is perhaps the most overlooked aspect of healing. We often expect to wake up with a surge of high-energy motivation, but the truest sign of a successful night's rest is actually a state of calm, steady readiness. It is the feeling that you are at zero, not empty, but perfectly balanced. The spikes of yesterday's frustrations and the dips of yesterday's fatigue have been smoothed into a single, level plane. This neutrality is a powerful tool. It means you are not starting the day with an emotional debt that needs to be paid. You are starting with a full cup of neurochemical reserves. The serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin that were meticulously synthesized in the pre-dawn hours are now available to you, providing the steady undercurrent of well-being that will sustain you through the afternoon. You are emotionally resilient, not because you are trying to be, but because your biology has made it so. As you lie here in these final moments of stillness, it is worth reflecting on the sheer intelligence of the process you have just completed. Without your conscious direction, your brain has washed itself in a rhythmic tide. Your heart has slowed to a restorative pulse. Your memories have been edited and filed, and your very DNA has been scanned and mended. You have participated in a billion-year-old ritual of renewal that connects you to every living thing on this planet. This realization provides a deep sense of existential safety. You are not a solitary ego struggling against an indifferent universe. You are a vital part of a grand, self-healing system. The night has proven that you are worth the effort of restoration. It has treated you with a relentless, quiet kindness, ensuring that regardless of how difficult yesterday was, you are granted a completely new beginning. The transition is now complete. The internal and external horizons have converged into a single, bright reality. The air in the room is no longer the air of the night. It is the air of the day, full of the scent of possibility and the hum of the turning world. You are ready to open your eyes and step back into the flow of time, but you do so as a different person than the one who lay down to sleep. You carry within you the silence of the delta waves, the creativity of the REM theater, and the strength of the metabolic forge. You are a biological masterpiece, refreshed and renewed. As you move into your morning, carry this stillness with you. Remember that beneath the noise of the day, the quiet work of your own healing is always ready to begin again when the sun sets. But for now, the light is here, the world is waiting, and you are whole. This concludes our exploration of the night's healing journey. May your day be as clear and steady as the rest that brought you here.